It's time for another episode of Hops and Hedges, where we talk about beer, landscaping, and everything in between. Season 1 is proudly sponsored by ext.tech, helping you grow and revolutionize your landscaping business. Now crack open a cold one, and let's dig in. And we are on. Thanks to everyone. Hello, friends, for tuning in to Hops and Hedges. With me today, I have the one and only Ed Hansen. How are you, Ed?
You know what? I'm fantastic. Thanks for asking. I'm
Excellent.
super excited to be here with you.
Oh, man. I was so stoked when you were like, yeah, I'll come on your podcast. Because I was like, where are you finding the time? So thank you for finding the time to sit with me today and nerd out a bit about landscaping and beer and whatever else comes up, because you are a busy guy.
Yeah, do you know what? I think it looks like that on the outside, but you know something? I'm very good at managing my time. I think that's
Okay,
something
good.
I've spent a long time working at and making sure that I control my time is
Right.
basically what I look
And
at.
prioritizing, because I know a lot of people, they use time as an excuse, right? They say, oh, well, I don't have time to do this. I don't have time to do that. I don't have time to do this. But if you prioritize and you organize your time, you'll have time for the things that are important, right?
Yeah, you know, when my kids were younger and they were involved in sports and they were running around and you got to get them to practice and you got to do this and you got to do that. We have a tournament in Toronto and we're trying to figure out time. That's when I'd meet people. I
Yeah,
would, take them somewhere and I'd meet somebody. Hey, why don't you watch the game with me? So sometimes you try to like, connect more than one thing at a time, which I
right.
think can happen too. But everybody has the same things. Oh, I'm so busy, work is this, work is that. Well, yeah, everybody is. So you just got to
Everybody is.
find
Yeah,
ways around it. Yeah, for sure.
absolutely. So for those who don't know, you are the Landscape Ontario president. So, Mr. President, thanks for sitting with me. I
No
feel so
worries.
like we're in the White House, you
Oh
know?
dear.
It's like,
Well,
oh,
look,
Mr. President.
we're not in the White House. You can see my coat rack back there too. So, yeah, no. Do you know what? I think it's a title bestowed upon someone who is very committed to the profession and very committed to
Absolutely.
the industry. And I think
And
that,
deserving. They don't hand that out easily. We were talking about that earlier, right? It's a
yeah,
10-year journey to become president.
it's a
Not
long
10 years
walk.
in the industry or the profession. It's 10 years from to get
Well,
there.
yeah, actually, and that's yeah, I don't know how far we want to go into this, but I mean, you have to typically your journey is you start on a local chapter board or you start in a sector group, lighting or something like that. And
Hmm.
then you do that and then you become on the executive of that, then you become a provincial rep, then you sort of move along. But being on the executive is a 10-year journey, just the executive alone, because you're treasurer, then you're second VP, president, past president, and those are 2-year terms. There's 10 years right there. So, yeah.
That's crazy. Yeah. So, and you're also the co-founder of, is it ext.tech or xtech, or how do you say it?
Well, actually, you know what? It's great that you asked that because it is ext.tech.
Okay.
And it's an extension of your business in technology. And the other kind of hidden meaning in it too is that it's Ed and Tom, and we met in tech.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, shout
Oh,
out.
I like clever names that have meaning.
Well, that is a hardcore, and you will love this, Heather, because it's very artistic. Is the gentleman that did it for us owns a company called Green Melon, and he's a branding expert.
Okay.
So anybody who's ever walked into a Farm Boy, for an example,
Yeah.
like every single element of Farm Boy is Rob. Like all the
Nice.
quirky songs and like the little monkey, it's a farm boy day, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all Rob. And he also
That's
does,
awesome.
which also would add into this, which maybe you'd love to get Rob someday, is he does the logos and the labels for a lot of beer cans. Yeah, I know.
Well,
Pretty crazy, I know.
isn't that cool? Beer
Hops and
can art
hedges, here
too?
we go. Yeah, yeah.
Jeez, man, that's cool. So, I mean, there's so many things that I want to pick your brain about because you really are quite an inspiration, not just to me, but to many others. So I want to try and like prioritize what I ask you. So you've had quite the journey, not just becoming president, but being in the industry and then co-founding ext.tech and others.
Mhm.
So can you give us a lowdown of how did you get here? Like, where did it start? what got you interested? And then how are you still here and still interested and still plugged in? Like, it's incredible.
Okay. So the Cole's Notes or the fast version is, like most people I've even heard on your podcast,
Hmm.
I started this journey a long time ago. I worked for a friend of mine's older brother's company,
Hmm.
and when I was a teenager, and
Couple
I
years
loved
ago.
the industry. Yeah, yeah, a couple of years.
Yeah.
Um, and I loved it. I loved it. I loved the hard work. I loved the physicality of it. I loved that I've always kind of felt like I'm a bit of a Clydesdale and I need to actually be working. I'm
Right.
not good just sitting in a barn. I feel like it's not, doesn't help anybody. So I loved it, and then I did the classic. I went off and got my university degree. And then I thought, I'm going to get into the real world because our world wasn't real back then. And that's
Well, and
actually
that's
kind
what
of
we're
true.
told to do, right? We're told to go to university, get an education, and get a real
Yep.
job.
Sure. And the other biggest part of that is that it's because that's what society told us to do.
Absolutely.
So society, when I was, younger, you were smart if you went to university, you were dumb if you went to college, and you were even further down the scale if you were in the trades, which we know now is totally not true, right? And
Yeah.
imagine the pressure of mental health back then that we couldn't admit to because we had to fit in the box.
Yeah.
And anyway, you know what? I'm lucky. I got a great job after my first degree, and I thought that I was, king of the world. I got a job working for someone in politics because I my first degree was in political science, and I hated it. I didn't just hate it. I hated everything about it. I hated everybody. I hated the sitting at a desk. I hated what it stood for. Just yeah, well, it's just I wasn't outside. I wasn't working. I wasn't physically working. It kind of bothered me a bit. So,
Yeah.
um, then I just said, okay, screw it. I'm out. And I did. I left and I went back to running my company that I'd started when I was in university. And then I thought, okay, I got to figure out how to make this better. So thus came in the degree in horticulture. Gotta, if I'm going to talk about horticulture, I better be able to talk about horticulture.
Yeah.
So I did, and then I just kept adding pieces, but getting good at business doesn't mean getting good at your craft, right? Like
Right.
I felt that I would watch pieces of people and see someone do a design and I'd be like, oh my God, they're way better than me at the design part. And then I'd see somebody install something and I'd think, damn, they're better than me. But yet my brain would
Yeah.
work because of all the competitive sports in my background. I would be like, yeah, screw it. I'm going to be better than them.
Hmm.
That was my drive. That was my driving force. And but that part, truthfully, maybe could have killed me. Because instead of asking for help and looking for help, I was
Right.
doing it on my own. Forget it.
Hmm.
Forget everybody else. There was no YouTube back then. There was no, you know, software to help people. There was no vacuum lifts to pick up a paver and put it in, right?
Oof. Yeah.
There was no, even back then, there was no forklift to take something off of a plant delivery. Like, so you started, it was a much different environment and you had to make your way through and you had to, find ways to make it. That fast forward slightly to realizing that I probably was in that mix. And for those that have heard this story, I'll repeat it, but Joan Johnson from Peter Knipple Nurseries in Ottawa, every time I would go in to buy stuff, she would say, how come you're not a member of Landscape Ontario?
Huh.
Oh, I don't need it. It's nothing. It's garbage. It's just a bunch of people, dang it. And but Joan, like the true committed professional that she is,
Hmm.
she never let it go. So I eventually had an issue where some education got canceled, a course that I decided to take got canceled. And that was the straw that broke the back for me. I was like, okay, screw it. If I can't beat it, I got to join it and make the changes. So instead of being part of the problem, I wanted to be part of the solution.
Hmm.
And so that was my first passionate drive into LO. I joined the local Ottawa chapter, and as they say, the rest would be history, so to speak. But my first thing was to make sure that education was at the forefront. How can we
Yeah.
learn without being? And that I'll throw out a Tony D, classic. You got 10 people in a room, and if you're afraid to give up a secret, imagine I'm going to give up one secret, but I'm going to get 9 back.
Yeah.
So I'm giving up one, I'm getting 9. Woo, that's a deal.
Yeah.
So anyway, we'd all take that deal if we could. But those were some inspiring times, but also too, the whole industry was way different back then. Imagine my first mentor in this industry was a strong, powerful female.
That's awesome.
Imagine that, right? Not back then. Back then it was old white dudes like me
Yep.
now. But that wasn't it for me. It was Joan. And,
Hmm.
Joan would always steer me in the right direction. I would ask questions and she'd say, don't do this, do this.
Yeah.
And, Joan was the second female president of Landscape Ontario, the first person from Ottawa to do it. And yeah, I would say even now, she's still on the Ottawa chapter board. She's still a giant in the industry. People still go to Joan to find out what they should plant in their gardens. Like, so I don't feel that I was led astray, but I think that watching and listening, even just recently, I was on a panel with Joan for something
Yeah.
and listening to her comfort in her own skin and talking about things. It's inspiring. It's just,
Yeah.
you listen to it and you think to yourself, and I know if Joan ever hears this, she won't like it because she doesn't like this kind of flattery. But yeah, you think of it, she's just somebody who I completely admire. And then as I kind of got to, like, I remember the first time I ever went to a Landscape Ontario meeting.
I'm going to
I
reel you in a little bit because we got lots
Yeah,
to
okay,
talk
yeah,
about.
sorry. Okay, you go. You
So,
you lead me.
but don't worry, I will. I'm going to crack that whip. So, ext though, dot tech. So, how did
Yep.
that start? Where did that come out from and what is it?
So it's a landscape management software. And
Hmm.
how it really got started was that originally at Hansen Lawn and Gardens, which is a company I founded in Ottawa, Ontario, when I started to look at programs and things like that, there was nothing existed.
Yeah.
So back then, yeah, guess what? There was no programs. Um, and you needed something to run your customer database. Like, instead of writing it out on a spreadsheet or on a bunch of pieces of paper or a book, back then,
Hmm.
I just never thought that that would be efficient. I always thought that that was inefficient. And then when you start to realize, like, am I making money at something? How is this crew working out? And I joke, but I used to write on every single piece of paper or a work order, I'd write ask Ed. So in other words, if you don't know about this job, or yeah, we're going to install this backyard, ask Ed. So they would have to find me to figure out how to do what they were doing because I would somehow remember all this stuff.
Hmm.
And then I realized it was impossible. So I'm lucky. My dad was in the Navy originally, he was in military intelligence. So even him, he was a computer person way back even then. So
Hmm.
my dad and I kind of, came up with this system. We put together a program, archaic as it was at the time, but it grew. And the genesis of it was that people started to look at it and think, hey, what do you use? And they'd ask and I'd tell them, and then we'd set them up to help them too, right? Like,
Yeah.
so, but small, like, I wasn't trying to advertise it or anything like that. And then the next big component of it is that my son worked at Hansen for a little while and saw some of the problems and saw some of the issues. And my son's a software engineer now. And so when he went through it, he thought, we can really help using this component. And so my son and myself, we sort of put together something, and then him and some of his buddies kind of took it to the next level. And it was a program called RootMate. And
Okay.
it was a routing software, so it could manage your whole field staff and where they went and how they got there and make notes and send them to clients and
Hmm.
all that sort of stuff. And then my son and his buddies, sort of wrapped that up. And then we sort of said, okay, well, let's merge the two programs together. And then comes in Tom. And Tom is a great guy who I met in Tech Canada, which is TEC, the executive committee.
Hmm.
We met in that as we were both members in a group. And Tom has a company that has put together some incredible software that I'm sure everybody would know. He worked on all of the apps on BlackBerry originally, and then went on to things like RV Easy and all sorts of other fantastic software pieces and components and apps. Anyway, so we merged, we put the two together, and came up with ext.tech. And the thing is that what we heard and what we see from our staff was everything's too complicated. So when you start to look at something and it's so complicated, what's the first thing people do is they just don't use it,
Give up.
or they
Yep.
only use a fraction of it. So that's how we sort of looked at it, that we want to manage your entire company with the triangle of ownership, field worker, and company, and client, I mean, so that every single person in that trinity
Hmm.
is connected. So imagine your clients know what you're doing, and if you don't do it, you can actually let them know,
Right.
as well as building your estimates and building your work orders and building all that. Like the list is,
Nice.
on and on. But it's the simplicity part that, one of our business development director, he always says that everything's 2 clicks away. Like,
Right.
and I like that line that he uses because it's true. Like everything is pretty much 2 clicks away for
And so
people
this
listening.
software, this program that you have, is it designed for uh like with the niche in mind of a design build company and or a maintenance company and or like for myself, right? I'm just a designer. And when I say just a designer, I'm not trying to downplay what I do, right? But I don't do maintenance really. Like there's a couple gardens that I help look after because they're more higher end and specialized and they don't
Yeah.
trust anybody else. But
Hmm.
I don't have a crew, right? Or multiple crews.
Yeah,
So
but see,
this sort of
that's
software
where
is
something like this can actually make a dramatic help for someone like you, even because I don't want to say get rid of staff, because I know that that's a horrible thing to think about, but then you can
Mhm.
reallocate those staff to do other things.
Right.
So for someone like you would, we have somebody who uses it that their line to me was great. So you're telling me that I could go to bed before 11 o'clock at night? And the answer is yes, because now
Yeah.
you don't have to and the other part then is that you could get home and your clients can do things online. They can deal with your issues that you might have had to call them back for, but they could just click a
Yeah.
button. So all these things make it easy. But
So for
um,
somebody like me who doesn't have staff, this software would also be suitable for.
oh, 100%. Yep.
Awesome. That was
Mm.
more my question. So I want to ask you before we dive into some more stuff. I want to know what you're drinking.
Okay, so I thematically, because of the timing, I'm going to say a couple things. I listened to the other
Okay.
people and I think, okay, I got a couple. So number one, I chose this. I'm drinking coffee right now. Okay.
Okay.
But it also looks like Guinness.
It does look like Guinness.
So which one is it?
I like that. So usually
But
I just
that's
have an
one.
opaque mug,
Yeah.
right? So it's like, oh, it's coffee. Because
But
this
it,
really doesn't look like coffee, right?
yeah, it could be cider.
Really watery
Maybe it could be
coffee.
some bad apple juice.
Ugh.
No, but in terms of other, like, in the sort of to fit with the theme, if I was to be somewhere, I love a Guinness. I can't lie. Like I like a dark beer. That's kind of my thing.
Yeah.
Being an old rugby guy, that's, maybe fits it well. But in that same, concept, there's a local brewery in Ottawa called Tooth and Nail.
That's a great name for a
Yeah, I love
brewery.
it, eh?
I love it.
It really, it really hammers it home.
Yeah.
Tooth and However, that being said, they have a beer there called Vim and Vigor, that I like. It's a Pilsner. Um, I might get in trouble for saying this, but I'm not really an IPA person. I
That's
don't,
no judgment. This is
yeah,
a safe zone.
yeah, it's not for me. I fought it for years though. Like I kept thinking, oh, I love this. This is great. IPA, yeah. I just don't like the aftertaste. I don't like
Yeah.
and I find that some craft breweries, and again, I might get shot for this, but some craft breweries, like just because you're craft doesn't mean you have to be crap. Like there's
Yeah.
some that's
Crap doesn't
just,
mean crap.
it's garbage. It tastes, it's bitter. There's so much sediment that it doesn't settle. It's still floating through it.
Oh,
And
gross.
that's why I like Tooth and Nail. There's no
Nice.
bullshit in it.
Yep.
It's it's like a really clean tasting beverage.
Okay.
And then the other part is that you can go to their they have a little at their brewery, you can go and eat there.
Mm-hmm.
They have great pizza, so you can go in, have some pizza, and have
Nice.
a pint, and then you can also grab a couple cans to take them away if you
I
want.
love that. when you
Yeah, I
can
love the
actually
style.
bring some home, right? Especially for these craft breweries, because for someone like me, I like trying a whole bunch of different beers because that's how I
Sure.
discover more of what I like and more of what I don't, right? And there is a lot of crap craft out there. You're right. There's a
Oh,
lot of
it's
really good
bad.
craft, but sometimes when it's bad, it's really bad.
Yeah,
So, and I'm a big texture person. So if I take a swig of beer and there's sediment,
same.
I'm done. I'm done.
Heather, you're
So
talking my language right there. Actually, here I'll even go so far as
I don't like to chew my beer.
since it's a no judgment zone. My wife and
Absolutely.
I went back to Nova Scotia this summer, and we had
Nice.
some, as Nova Scotians will call it, vitamin O, which is Oland's beer, and it is not a craft brewery, but it is a only provincial brewery. Like
Okay.
you can't get Oland's in the rest of the country.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, you forget how clean and perfect it is.
Huh.
But it's funny because it's not a craft brewery, but
Yep.
I would assume that like Molson's probably stymied them because they also call one of their beers export. So
Okay. Yeah, I'll
maybe.
have to
I don't
check
know.
that out. I've got a an organic hazy IPA. So this is the London Brewing Co-op. They're a
Okay.
local cooperative, which is really cool. So it's employee owned, and
Okay, that's
they
neat.
come up with stuff, and the location too, they do a lot of really cool events. So they do live bands. Um, they I'm quite involved actually with the local drag community. So I
Okay.
do a lot of people don't know, but I perform as a drag king. Oh, surprise.
Nice.
My drag king's name is Robin Williams. Yeah, it's a good
I
time.
love it.
It's good, right? And I think
That's
Robin
fantastic.
Williams, he would approve. He's
Oh, totally would approve. Oh my
yeah.
God, probably sit in the front row for it too.
So it's
If he
a
could
little
sit
bit
long
of
enough. Yeah.
right. It's my homage to him because he was about bringing joy, and my drag king is a bit of a dorky nerd that uses comedy, right? So,
That's funny. I
um,
love it.
but they do the London Brewing Co-op holds a lot of drag events, so they
Okay.
have drag shows and performances and things like that. So yeah, that's what I'm drinking, the organic hazy IPA, one
Do
of
you
my
know, it's
go-tos.
something that's like really big for me right now is talking about community and something that I love about local breweries wherever you are situated. Here in Ottawa, there's a brewery, and I don't want to ruin their name because I can't even remember it, but they host bands all the time, and supposedly it's the number one place to go see music now.
Hmm.
So they've their whole, they obviously have a big space for the brewery, but that, then they bring in bands and stuff. So yeah, it's bringing in community and getting people to not only like the beer but the vibe.
Yeah,
And that one you're drinking sounds fun with the fact that it's, employee owned and stuff. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
yeah, and hazy, but not chunky.
Hazy
There's
but not chewy.
right? Like there's none of that chewy bits in here.
No Chewbacca in the beer there.
Ugh.
Yeah, no, none of
Ugh.
that.
We
Yeah.
don't want to give any of our listeners the gag reflex. That would just be so wrong. That's not our intention. That's not our intention.
No, just enjoy. And also too, I find sometimes, with the beer part is that it's also the moment, like you have a really hard day's work and
Yeah.
then you have a beer or I when I first started, this is, years and years ago, to kind of go a little bit off track, but I had an Italian gentleman that did a lot of concrete work for us and some construction side stuff. And every day for lunch, he would stop at noon and
Yeah.
he would sit down, open up his cooler, take his boots off. He would have a very small, and I don't have something, but like, like a double espresso sort of size
Yep.
of wine. And he would have like a chunk of bread and a cucumber or a tomato or something. But
Yeah.
this was his routine.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, anyway, and you kind of think like that was his, but it was a reward for his morning of work, is
Right.
how he always told me that that's how he looked at food.
It's
So
so funny because my so our property, right? And I'm gonna ask you about your garden in a second because I understand it's quite nice. So mine is not, right? So I have hands down the worst gardens on the street, and I'm not exaggerating. But our backyard and side yard is pretty much all shade. But our front steps, we've got a concrete porch, concrete step, is right in that like late afternoon sun. So
okay.
I'll come home covered in mud, from measuring or planting or pruning or whatever. And sometimes I was just reminiscing with my husband yesterday, but my husband knows I'll come home and I go like this. And it means beer me. And I will sit on that front porch with that little bit of sun. And my husband, bless him, he loves me. He will come and he will put a beer in my hand. And that first sip on that porch with the sun in my face, it's like,
Yeah.
okay, that was a good day.
It's the moment, not the beer. Like that's the best part.
Yeah.
It's the combination of everything coming together. It's like a
Hmm.
sunset after a great day.
Right?
Like it just feels so good. Yeah, for sure.
So good. So we've got about 8.5 minutes left. So let's see what
Okay.
we can cover. I was asking, so in the pre-interview podcast questionnaire, right? This is what I send all the guests. That way we can kind of guide the interview and see what you want to talk about.
Yeah, hopefully I
Um,
remember.
that's okay. You don't need to. I've got it in front of me. See, I
Okay.
I got you. I got you. So I was asking you about your favorite plants, and
Yeah.
you put on their ghost pipe, which actually it's a
Yeah.
fungus, right? Like it's a mushroom.
Yeah, it's in the funny part of of life, it's it's a parasitic plant.
Right.
Yeah,
But
but
it
that's not
is
why I
pretty
like it
cool.
because it's parasitic. Do
Right.
you know what I like it for? Look, think of it this way. It doesn't because of some of its interesting facts. Like it has no chlorophyll, it doesn't photosynthesize. Like these are some, if you're a plant geek, this is some pretty cool stuff, right?
Yeah.
It's not popular, it's not something you run around. And actually, if I'm really honest, even as somebody like I have a degree in horticulture
Yeah.
and I was at a client's house, I've never even heard of this plant before.
Yeah.
And this client, we're talking about how great their garden's going to look and all this, and she says, if you really like plants, do you want to come and see something? And I was like, sure. So we
Yeah.
walk into her back forest and she shows me this, and I was absolutely blown away.
Yeah.
Yeah. And which this does lead me to the fact that I recently, in the last, I'd say like recent, like 5 to 10 years, I get caught up in all the new plant material and I love this and I love that. And oh my gosh,
Yeah.
it's so cool. But I've gone back to the old traditionals. And
Yeah.
I say that, I don't want to get too deep into a native part or not, but
Yeah.
when I was a kid and my grandmother would be cutting peonies to bring in to float on a dish at the
Yeah.
dinner table, you know what? It's the most beautiful thing ever. It was
Yeah.
just stunning, and why? Because she was just had beautiful peonies in her garden and beautiful Hansen roses,
Yeah.
and things. Yeah, just all these, things that were we get caught up in everything has to change and be different. But, if you're a maritimer, you like ditch lilies,
Right.
but they're really tiger lilies, but they're really, you could get into some
Yeah.
other, but you know what? They're still beautiful. We
Yeah.
just, because they're the same every year, that there's something wrong with that. Like,
Hmm.
I have one story about plants that really revolutionized my thinking about plant material.
Okay.
I had a client who wanted a very specific crabapple tree, and I thought that he was nuts. And I said to him, look, why would you want this? It's only going to like, and by the way, this became a pain to get the exact one that he wanted. It was
Oh,
really
of course.
complicated, of course, right? And he said, I said, it only lasts for like maybe a week, maybe. And he said, yeah, but he goes, I know a lot of people who get really excited for their birthday and it's one day. I know people who get really excited for Christmas and it's only one day. And they focus their whole year around that day. So what
Hmm.
would make this any different?
Right.
And it really did change my mind about plants. Because I look at plants and I see things like, I'll give you an example, hostas. Pretty
Yep.
boring. They're like a weed. They're everywhere. Everybody's garden's got a couple of different types of hosta. But you know what it does for me? Teleports me right back to my father's garden.
Hmm.
Uh, with his he later on in life he bought a farm with his I guess his passion for horses, but he had this one big garden, which actually my stepmom would look after regardless. But she and him, they had these beautiful hostas. And guess what? My dad passed away a long time ago, and Jane split the biggest hosta that they had, and now it's in my garden. So
That's so cool.
like that's just what plants can do for us. They're not
Yeah.
just things we run to the nursery and buy. And I'm not knocking nurseries. I get it. You know,
No,
it's
no.
bad,
Well,
but
and there's memories associated with them, right? I
yep,
mean, often we hear people talk about the smell. So even the smell of the hosta flower reminds people of their grandma's garden or
yeah,
their
sure.
childhood garden, things like that. But then to actually take clippings or take to split plants and they
Yep.
last for generations.
Yeah.
It's so cool.
Magnolia is another one like that for me too, is it brings me right back to my dad's mom,
Yeah.
because they had a magnolia tree in Swan River, Manitoba, and I just remember being there
And you
one
go
time
right
and
back
smelling
there.
it, and it just
For me,
reminds
it's
me.
chives. Uh,
Oh yeah,
I I really quick here, I'm embarrassed to admit. I mean, now I consider myself a good cook because I like to wing it, right? I like to try new things. But sometimes you try something and it's a disaster. So I tried to make baked potatoes with chives. Sounds great.
yeah.
Except I picked a decorative grass out of the garden, not
Oh
chives.
dear. So you were
Um,
throwing some Carl Forrester in on top of your.
Pretty much. Yeah, I was like 16. And yeah, it tasted like grass, and my parents to this day still refer to them as the time Heather made Shrek potatoes.
Do you know though, just on that line, and I know we're short on time, but these
Really quick,
plant
because I've
story,
got two more questions for you.
but the plant stories can go on. Edible plants are stellar. Like if you take even the flower from squash
Yep,
is a delicacy.
so good.
Nasturtiums, that peppery
Nasturtiums, that's
flavor.
what I was gonna ask.
Oh, so
Okay, cutting
good.
you off,
Anyway,
moving you
sorry.
on, because I want to know. So, two more questions for you. So one, I want to know if there's one book, and that's gonna be hard, because I know you're a reader like me. But if there's one book that you could recommend
Yeah.
for personal professional development, lay it on me.
This is always a tough question because like you say, so I I try to consume books, and
Yep.
the reason I do that is because I find it gives new perspectives and things. However, I've said this a few times recently and I'm going to say it again. I think that for me, when I need a reset in life, I always go back to Viktor Frankl and read The Man's Journey or Life's Journey, and I hopefully I got the name right, but
Man's
the
Search for
book
Meaning.
Man's Search for Meaning. Thank you. Um,
Very good book.
and the thing is that if you want to reset yourself, that is one hell of a reset,
Yep.
and I just recently read another The Happiest Man on Earth,
Oh
which
yeah.
is in the same line, but not that I'm going on Holocaust theme necessarily, but it does show perseverance and endurance and resiliency and things like that. But like there's so many books. The obstacle is the way is something that as a leadership part, I realize, we look at things like, oh, I can't do that because,
Yeah.
well, in that book, the reference is that that's exactly why you do it. Nobody else is going
Awesome.
to do it. You're going to run through it,
I'm
right?
going to
So
cut
those
you off
are,
there because we're going to be cut off. So I didn't
yep.
have time to get to my last question, but I'm just going to have you on for an Ed Hansen part two.
Let's do it. I'm
So the
open.
book I'm going to quickly recommend is The Miracle Morning by Hal
Ooh,
Elrod.
nice. Okay.
And then there's one for entrepreneurs. These books, hands down, were really good for me. So thank you
Love it.
again, Ed, for coming on the show. Cheers
Yep.
to you, my friend. And we will have to
Back
do this
at you.
again sometime. Okay.
Anytime you want. I'm happy. Thanks, Heather.
Cheers.
Appreciate you very much.
You too.
Bye now.
That concludes this week's episode, hosted by me, Heather Gerard at My Landscape Artist. Now, before you go, here's some info about our sponsor, ext.tech. In today's fast-paced world, your landscaping business needs modern solutions to keep up with the change. That's where EXT comes in. EXT is revolutionizing the way you manage projects and streamlines your landscaping, snow removal, and construction operations. Instead of juggling 5 different software packages, endless spreadsheets, losing track of leads, and missing out on potential sales, you could be leveraging AI job routing, client management, and financial insights with a modern mobile app that employees love to use. With EXT's flat rate pricing, you'll never be caught off guard. If you're ready to revolutionize and grow your landscaping business, visit ext.tech today to learn more. And for additional savings, use the code HOPS10 at checkout, or just tell them that Heather sent you. See you next week for another episode of Hops and Hedges.